On Friday, I was using verse number 7. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and herds and the camels, into two bands, and said, if Esau come to one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. Now, on Friday I pointed out that Jacob now has Laban out of his life. And you would think that getting Laban out of his life, that would be a tremendous victory and everything would be on a downhill grade from here. But no sooner is Laban out of Jacob's life, now Esau is in his life. And that is the way that all of our Christian experience and our Christian lives are. Well, we get rid of one problem only to be terrified and to have trouble with another. The idea that you and I in this life are going to get over all of our troubles and all of our trials, we'll no longer have to face any kind of difficulty at all, is a misnomer. Basically, the Christian life is going from one difficulty to the other. Human life is faced and fraught with going from one difficulty to the other. Now, Jacob understands the predicament that he is in, and he begins to take precautions. Look with me, please, in verse number 1. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's host. And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers. Now look at the precaution that Jacob is taking. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother, unto the land of Seir, the land of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau. Thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban, and stayed there until now. That was some 20 years had gone by. And I have oxen and asses and flocks and men servants and women servants. And I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. Now what we have before us are two very wealthy individuals. Jacob is certainly not a pauper, not by any stretch of the imagination. If you look at the gift that he sent to give to his brother, the gift of flocks and herds and cattle and milk camels, and we'll read about all of that in just a moment. There's no question that the man Jacob has become a very wealthy farmer, a very wealthy landowner, and he has an abundance in flocks and in herds. But on the other hand, the man Esau has grown, and the prophecy of God, God promised Hagar, the angel of the Lord said, I'll make of him a great nation. I'll multiply him and make him great. And that had happened. And when Esau comes to meet Jacob, he comes as a mighty, powerful chieftain. He comes as an Arabian sheik. He comes as a lord, that I may find grace in his sight. Now there comes a time in your life and in mine when a little precaution and a little humility will go a long way. I've run into people and they were so arrogant and proud and stubborn. They were too stubborn for their own good. They were too arrogant and proud for their own good. They had too much self-ability. They were self-absorbed. There will come a time in your life and in mine, if it hasn't happened yet, it will, when you'll have to go see the banker with your hat in your hand. When you'll have to go back across a bridge that you crossed earlier. I had a man tell me a long time ago, he said, be careful about burning all those bridges. You might have to go back across one of them. What valuable words of wisdom. What words of wisdom that is. Be careful how you burn bridges. You may have to go back across that bridge one day. And Jacob had to flee for his life 20 years earlier, but now he's having to go back across a bridge that he had crossed 20 years, 2 decades earlier. And he's going to have to meet the man that he stole the birthright from. He beat Esau out of his birthright. Now Esau has the responsibility for selling his birthright for a mess of pottage. But Jacob had conned him out of that, and then he beat him out of his blessing by outright deception. And his mother had a hand in that. And now he's going to have to face the man that he stole not only a birthright from, but that he stole a blessing from. So he sends men in advance. A prudent man foreseeth the evil. And you and I need to live beyond the day that we live in. You and I need to recognize forever where we came from. You need to have a firm connection with the past, where you came from. But you need to be observing, where am I going? And today is simply a very small portion in where I have been. And today is a very small portion in my destiny, where I am going. And Jacob now sends men. He's prudent. He takes a precaution. And he sends messengers unto Esau. And he says, I'm coming back into the land. I'm coming back. And he refers to Esau not as his brother. Now he was. In fact, they are twin brothers. They were both in the same womb. And they fought to a death struggle in the womb of their mother, Rachel. But he doesn't call him brother. He calls him my Lord. Tell my Lord Esau, a soft answer turneth away wrath. Humility goes a long way. Humility can settle situations and difficulties that a hard answer would only stir up and make matters much, much worse. But a soft answer turneth away wrath. He said, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. That is a true statement. And I have oxen and asses and flocks and men servants and women servants. That is a true statement. And he said, tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. Now the messengers returned. Look at verse 6. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. He cometh to meet thee with 400 men with him. I ask the question, what in the world does this mean? I imagine when Jacob heard that, well, the Bible said, and then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. Esau now arrives to see his brother, and he comes with 400 armed soldiers. Now, Abraham had his own military. Esau now has his own military. I read nothing in this context where Jacob has his own military. Abraham, a very powerful man. Abraham's grandson Esau has his own 400-man strong army. I was told by a missionary whom I have tremendous respect and confidence in, that and he was in the northern tier of Africa, and he said that when Omar Gaddafi was the strong man in Libya, that the Libyan army was not the army of the people of Libya, that was Omar Gaddafi's personal army. And all the military aircraft that they had, they bought from Russia. All of that belonged to Omar Gaddafi. That Omar Gaddafi's, the Libyan Guard, was Omar Gaddafi's personal army. And this missionary said that he would see trains go by with train cars filled. Not one train car, train cars, plural, filled from top to bottom, front to back, with gold bars. That is an incalculable amount of money. And he said all of that money belonged to Omar Gaddafi. And Omar Gaddafi took that money and bought armaments and bought firearms and arms and ammunition and paid the Libyan guard. He paid them with that gold bullion. That gold bullion belonged to Omar Gaddafi. He sold the oil on the world a trade stock market and a futures market, and was paid in all of that gold. So Esau, a man very much like that. And Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. I would be too. Now there are some readers that I read after in preparing to bring this message, and they said that it may be that Esau was on a military excursion or a military exercise, and that he found out that Jacob was coming while conducting this military exercise and just came straight to the meeting with Jacob with the 400 armed men. I don't know if that hypothesis is so or not. It may well be that he arrived as a show of force to his brother. Now, that would upset me greatly, and it upset Jacob greatly. Jacob, at this point, is in a very narrow place. It's always bad in your life and in mine when we get into a narrow place. And a missionary one time told me this man was an Army Ranger before he surrendered to the Lord and went to the mission field. This is back in the 1950s and 60s. He was training as an Army Ranger to be dropped in Siberia during the height of the Cold War, following Korea and the Korean conflict. And he had a lot of very interesting stories to tell. A lot of interesting stories to tell about their training, getting ready for armed conflict with Russia 70 years ago. But he used to make this statement, and I hope I understand it a little better today than I did before. But he would make this statement. He said, always keep time on your side. Always keep time on your side. You need to think far enough ahead to avoid getting your back against the wall. I think that's exactly what Solomon said. I quoted it a moment ago. A prudent man foreseeth the evil. Jacob was greatly afraid. At this point, Jacob has his back against the wall. Now, he's done everything he can. He's made all the preparation to mitigate as much damage as possible. And he divided all of the flocks and herds up into companies. And he said in verse number 8, if Esau come to one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And then the man Jacob begins to pray. Now, brother, men ought always to pray and not to faint. You and I need to be praying daily. You need to maintain a prayer life with the Lord. But there comes times in your life and in mine when we really do pray. I mean, it's life or death. It's up or down. It's sink or swim. It's success or failure. And if anything will drive a man or a woman to their knees, it's getting in a narrow place like Jacob is. He was greatly afraid. And now he is beyond prudence and doing everything I can to mitigate the damage. He now begins to call on God for help. And by the grace of God, on the program tomorrow, I will deal with that.